This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. I know this is my second post of the day, but I wanted to share this article with you from Boris Johnson. This article is behind a paywall, so I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. So Boris Johnson wants Harry and Meghan to come back to the UK and wrote this opinion piece in the Daily Mail. Now, I can't tell if this is a joke or if Boris Johnson is really serious about making this plea to Harry and Meghan to come back to Britain. I feel like this noise is getting louder and louder for the return of these two, but I'll let you guys decide. Headline: Boris Johnson, what happened in my manly chat with Prince Harry where I tried to talk him out of Megxit? Now, after all that's gone on, I have a simple message for both him and Meghan. I say, Harry, I said, or words to that effect, and I fixed the gingery young prince with what I hope was a look of manly frankness. It must have been just over 6 years ago, right at the beginning of 2020, just before COVID was really freaking us all out. Prince Harry was the star turn at a highly successful Docklands summit on UK Africa investments, and I had decided, with what now feels like epic pomposity, to give him a pep talk. I had heard or read that he and his beautiful wife, Meghan Markle, were about to leave the country. They were off somewhere warmer, more congenial, possibly the USA, and you know what? I felt it would be a loss. I had worked with both of them, seen them in action. When I was mayor of London, I'd see Harry do an excellent job of leading the Invictus Games, a sporting competition for disabled veterans. When I was foreign secretary, they came to an event on female education, and Meghan struck me as especially passionate and well-briefed. I noticed how much zing they seemed to add, how people's eyes lit up when they came into the room. I had vaguely concluded that Harry and Meghan were a national asset, and I decided to see if I could talk him out of leaving. So sometime in the middle of the morning, our officials cleared a meeting room. We were standing eyeball to eyeball. As I say, I felt that I could speak to him in a vernacular sort of way, as if offering career advice. I think one of my brothers was briefly in the same class at school. So I cleared my throat and had a bash. I honestly think it's a pity, I said. I think there's so much good you can do here, so many good causes. Why not stick around? That was the gist, and because he is basically a polite and forbearing fellow, he heard me out without the slightest sign of impatience. But it was clear I was getting nowhere. I may have delivered Brexit, but I couldn't avert Megxit. I am reminded of all this because I saw a brilliant piece in yesterday's paper by Jan Noir, in which she mentioned that after 6 years in Montecito, California, things are not going quite as swimmingly as they were. She said that Netflix has stopped making so many documentaries about Meghan, for instance, and the general impression was that there were at least some in America who felt, on the whole, that the Harry and Meghan show had delighted the nation long enough. Well, I have no idea about the intricacies of their many charitable ventures or about their finances, but since I have a huge regard for Jan Noir, I'm inclined to believe there must be something in what she says. In which case, my message is simple. Come back, the pair of you. Come back to Britain with your heads held high. I don't care what anyone else says. It looks to me as if your American sojourn has been a triumphant success. According to one report, Meghan has managed to sell not far short of 1 million pots of jam, retailing at $42 for a fruit spread box. This is astonishing. Now I too have made jam at home. It's a very laborious process, and you risk being scalded by the boiling bituminous fluid used in the Middle Ages as an actual weapon of war. In my case, the results were so bad that I literally couldn't give it away. And yet, Meghan has not only made 1 million pots, she has persuaded huge numbers of people to buy them at eye-watering prices. You do the math. It's why Harry was right back then to ignore me and why they were right to go to America. That's why there are so many former UK PMs stacked in holding pattern over New York or Chicago waiting for clearance to give keynote speeches to vast conferences of cardiologists and gastroenterologists. That's why so many talented Brits go to America, from Charles Dickens and P.G. Wodehouse to Gordon Ramsay and Harry Styles. I am firmly with W.H. Auden, who concludes a funny poem about giving speeches in America with the stanza, "God bless the lot of them," although I don't remember which was which. God bless the USA, so large, so friendly, and so rich. Except that it's not just about the money, it's about the zap, the energy, the sense of boundless possibility. Ask yourself seriously, how many pots of jam could Meghan have possibly hoped to sell in Britain? They don't stock it at Fortnum's. They don't even stock it in the King's Farm Shop at Highgrove. You can't get a pot of Meghan's as-ever jam for love nor money in this country because whoever is advising her has explained correctly that the British customer is just too inveterately cynical. The reason that the American economy is so astonishingly innovative is partly that people are not cynical and so relatively eager to celebrate startups, even if it's only making jam. That's why so many of us love America and why you hear British voices everywhere in New York and Hollywood. And yet, of course, there comes a point, and 6 years is a long time, when everyone's thoughts eventually turn to home. There is absolutely nowhere lovelier than England in the spring. The blossom is already out here in Oxfordshire. The grass has had its first mow. A pair of ducks has just winged its way past my window. Isn't it time for this pair of royal ducks to wing their way home? There's no disgrace in going to America, giving it your best shot, and then jacking it in. Robbie Williams did it. So did Piers Morgan. One Direction eventually went in both directions. If Harry and Meghan come back, they would, of course, have to smooth things over with the rest of the family. But that is surely not impossible. Their return would be an important signal in grim times of confidence in this country. Since my abortive pep talk in 2020, we have acquired a diabolical Labour government. Tens of thousands of talented people are fleeing the country in what is turning into a national economic disaster that is costing the exchequer squillions in tax. So I say, help us stem the Starmer hemorrhage, swim against the tide, show a lead, Harry and Meghan, come back to poor old Blighty. Cheer us up with your gemtastic household tips and your richly comic family feuds. Above all, get stuck back into those conspicuously thinned out royal ranks and champion some things that really matter, like educational equality and injured veterans. You once did a great job when you were allowed to. You can do it again. Come back, Harry and Meghan. All is forgiven. I honestly don't know what to make of this. However, being that Boris Johnson brought back up that he met with Harry right before he fled the UK, at this point, I don't believe anything that we're being told about this couple. What if Boris Johnson sat down with Harry before he came over here to give him his final instructions? At the time, Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and he did mention that he was previously Foreign Secretary. And under Boris Johnson's watch, the infamous 77th Brigade had been spying on its own citizens and getting social media platforms to censor speech, in conjunction the same way that the United States was censoring speech, especially during COVID. So now when you put all of these little pieces together, like Harry slipping and saying that he told his father that he wanted to reshape the media landscape, and his father said that would be like a suicide mission, shows that in some way, some form, King Charles knew what his son was coming over here to do. And every time Harry talks about reshaping the media landscape, well, in the past, he said on numerous occasions, using the word mission every time he talked about reshaping the media landscape. And the only people that use that kind of terminology are military people. So it has me thinking now, what if Boris Johnson knew about this covert mission that Harry was being sent on by the UK government to interfere with our election? I don't know very much about Boris Johnson, aside from the fact I thought he was on Trump's side. But what if Boris Johnson wasn't a fan of Donald Trump? I don't know much about him, but I don't trust him. And considering he has been a part of the World Economic Forum from as early as 2011 on, especially with people who had involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, kind of makes you wonder. So now if you had the chance to look through some of these Epstein files, it's looking more and more as if they had been planning this pandemic since 2015. When you look at the timing of everything, especially with Harry and Meghan, from the moment Meghan showed up onto the scene with this narrative of racism and the issues here in the United States being manufactured by the leftist media, not only did they do that with race, but they also did that with misogyny too. And if people were paying attention back then, leading up to the 2020 election, all of this manufactured outrage was all being directed to attack Trump. If you think about it, the Democrats made Trump the poster child for white supremacy, racism, misogyny, Islamophobia. And that's when we started to see this phenomenon of if you were a white male, your life didn't matter. And this all stemmed from the hatred that Hillary and Obama had for Trump getting into office. When you look at how the globalists were operating, the plan was to weaken America and pretty much destroy it so they can build this new world order. That is what you see happening in the EU and UK right now. Same thing's happening in Canada and Australia. So, when you think about it, what's the end goal? Is the end goal for Islam to take over the world? I'm not sure of that yet, but it does feel like that is what is happening. And that has been the biggest threat these past 16 years, ever since Obama showed up on the scene. I think many of us forget what life was like before all of this started back in 2016. So for Boris Johnson to write this article, a somewhat playful article for Harry and Meghan to come back, I almost wonder if that is part of the plan. Because all of these people were a part of this globalist agenda. When we look back at things, which is something that if you're interested in, I'm going to be putting up the first debate with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I think if you take the time to look at it now, it definitely hits in a very different way. I'll be putting that up a little later on. If you want to come over and join the chat, please do. It is definitely worth watching again. But what do you think about this article from Boris Johnson? Do you think he's being serious? Do you think he's being a joker? I don't know anything about Boris. Is he somebody to be trusted? Leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.